unique and unknown soldiers and roles during the Civil War, but because I don't know what kind of content gets people's attention, every single section of this video is going to be different.
Excuse me?
Or somewhat different. Anyway, I hope you enjoy.
During the Civil War in the United States, it was very common to see child soldiers. Child soldiers, as the name suggests, were children between the ages of 9 and 15. They sneaked into the military to fight in the war. The majority of these children were boys. It was very rare to see a child soldier. To become a child soldier in the war, they had to lie about their age, and if they looked old enough to hold a gun, leadership allowed them to enlist. There was various reasons as to why these kids willingly joined the war. One reason being they wanted to fight for their country. Another reason was they thought it would be an adventure and it would come with glorification. More reasons as to why these soldiers decided to enlist was because of family influence, escaping difficult life at home or running away, peer pressure, extra money for income, or being forced into it. After joining, majority of these children regretted it. One soldier that was the youngest child soldier to ever enlist was 8-year-old Edward Black, who later died at the age of 19 due to trauma and injury. These habits that these children developed after the war were being more alert, waking up early, quick to respond with aggression, and they were more organized. A lot of them also had PTSD and couldn't go back to normal life. Although some decided to stay in the military, and others that were able to go back to normal life and be businessmen or farmers. And a lot of them got veteran benefits.
In the United States in Civil War, it was quite common for women to fight, yet nobody noticed. During the period of the Civil War, many people did not support women fighting, meaning women would have to sneak into the military if they wanted to fight. They did this for many reasons. For money, to fight for their country, a sense of independence without being restricted, follow a husband or brother who had enlisted, and to prove themselves. Women stuck in by changing their identity, acting like men, such as having a weird walk or weird posture, chewing tobacco, swearing, smoking, gambling, all those other things. They also would avoid medical exams, wear baggy clothing with binders sometimes, and avoiding people whenever using the bathroom. Sarah Edmonds, a very well-known woman soldier who went under the identity of Franklin Thompson, had lived many lives, such as living as a woman, living as a man, being a mailer, being a spy, being a nurse, and also living as an author after the war. And you're probably wondering, how did these women deal with their periods? Well, there's many things, such as they would have irregular periods due to a disease that would either temporarily shorten or stop their periods. Another one is whenever they would clean themselves up or use a pad, unlike today with our normal pads, they would use makeshift cloth scraps from uniforms. And how they would hide the fact that they were on their period is they sometimes would fake illness. So whenever they seemed fatigued, people would just think it was the illness. A lot of times they would ignore the pain. They were able to keep a low profile, and they took extra care in the bathrooms. Like, they really cleaned themselves up in the bathrooms. Or their latrines, which is basically a bathroom. Or they would go out at odd hours to take care of their things. What these women did after war varies. Some kept their identity as a man and thought, know what, I'm already used to it. Some revealed their identities, and others paved the way and talked about women being able to join the military and fight.
The Signal Corps played a crucial role during the United States Civil War because it transferred the military's communication and intelligence. And in official capacity, the Signal Corps began operations on June 21st, 1860. This was right before war had broken out. Albert J. Meyer, a former Army surgeon, had created a system of visual signaling, which was known as the wigwag. It used flags during the day and torches during the night. They used these to send coded messages through different series of motions. The U.S. Military Telegraph Corps, USMTC, was another part of the Signal Corps. When Lincoln realized the telegraph's potential, he turned the USMTC into a weapon for the military. The USMTC was under the direction of Andrew Carnegie and Thomas A. Scott, expanded telegraph lines at a rapid rate. By the end of the war, there was already 15,000 miles telegraph lines. The difference between the Union Army and the Confederate Army Signal Corps was how the Union relied more on the USMTC system, while the Confederates relied more on the wigwag system. The Balloon Corps is also sometimes considered part of the Signal Corps. And if Lincoln hadn't taken advantage of the telegraph system, they probably would have lost the war.
Many people don't know that during the American Civil War, there were also tons of minorities fighting, such as the Irish, French, Germans, Chinese, Native Americans, and Hispanics. The Irish especially helped the Union. Why the Irish were in the United States was because not too long ago, before the war, they had experienced the potato famine, meaning a lot of Irishmen emigrated to the United States. The Irish had also been indentured servants previous to the African American slaves. The French helped more of the Confederacy, but why the French were in the United States was due to the Louisiana Purchase. Germans had been fighting with both sides, Union and Confederacy. They had been in the United States because they wanted to escape European revolutions that had been happening. There were Chinese people who had helped the Union more, and they had been there due to the California Gold Rush. Native Americans had also helped fought. They fought on both sides due to the fact that there was a lot of political alliances with different tribes. Lastly, there was Hispanics who fought on both sides. They were there because of the westward expansion.
Powder monkeys were children between the ages of 10 and 14. These boys were on a naval ship during the Civil War. During combat, their job was to rapidly transport gunpowder from the ship's magazine, the storage area, to the people using cannons. Young children had this job because they were miniature, quick, and move through small spaces. They had an easier time evading enemy fire. Powder monkeys were poor children, orphans, and young sailors. Their job was extremely dangerous. One explosion or enemy attack could be lethal. And these boys are considered a type of child soldier.
A decade before the Civil War in 1850, the camel corps was used as an experiment due to the fallibility of camels. When the war began in 1860, the camel corps received scarce use. As a result, the Union disbanded their camel corps at the beginning of the war. The Confederates used their version of the camel corps to transport things from Texas and California. After the war, the camels were sold off and released, but most of them would be able to travel 1,200 miles successfully across mountains and deserts in the southwest of the United States. These camels were also able to carry 600 to 800 pounds on their back. They also were useful for delivering new messages. They weren't really used for anything else, so I don't know why they used camels for that long, but it's still interesting to think about that at some point the United States used camels.
In the American Civil War, Thaddeus S. Lowe, an aeronaut and scientist, was able to convince President Abraham Lincoln of the potential of military balloons. This led to the foundation of the Balloon Corps in 1861. The purpose of the Balloon Corps was to have an aerial advantage against the enemy. It allowed armies to observe enemy movements and fire weaponry with more accuracy. The technology used by the Balloon Corps were big air balloons filled with hydrogen, and the balloon carried a basket which people could occupy. Balloon Corps members kept the basket tied down with ropes, even while in flight. The design was similar to a hot air balloon. Balloon Corps balloons could reach altitudes of 1,000 feet while still having ropes to hold them in place. Lastly, the people in the balloons, called observers, would use field glasses, now we called the field glasses binoculars. Observers utilized the telegraph to relay their observations to their commanders. The Balloon Corps is known as one of the earliest uses of aerial warfare. Sadly, they had to disband due to difficulty with transportation because of the balloons being too big and not having enough hydrogen to supply, along with the terrain and logistical issues and the failed attempts of the Confederates trying to shoot down the balloons. This also inspired the future military aviation. During the Civil War in the United States, African Americans started to enlist in the war after in 1863 Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. These people were put into units called United States Colored Troops, USCT, and one of the most famous of these units was called 54th Massachusetts Regiment. African American soldiers had faced a lot of racism, lower pay, and harsh treatments while serving in the military.
drafted boys between the ages of 12 and 16 had the job of sending commands via drums during battle. They gave commands by playing difficult drum beats, such as one beat for retreating, another one for charging in, etc. Even though they did not fight, they were still on the battlefield, endangering them. Sometimes they even died. The army used drums along with bugles to give commands because the instruments were loud enough to hear over the gunfire. These drummers were crucial because they assisted with keeping troops organized. These drummer boys are also considered child soldiers.
Thank you so much for watching to the end, and I really hope you learned something new.